Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new ESO builds video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be showing off, or I'm going to be showing off, my new Khajiit healer Moon Dancer build. And I call it the Moon Dancer mainly because it is a Khajiit, and it's, you don't see a lot of Khajiit healers. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain my attributes, I'm going to explain my gear, I'm going to explain my skills, and I'm going to explain my champion points, but I'm also going to tell you guys ways that you can play this same gear build or this same build type with any of the classes. So that way, if you're not playing a Templar, you can play it as a like a Nightblade, a Sorc, or a DK, and it'll work with those classes as well. You just need to do a different combination of skills to give them the same effect almost. So the main thing, focus of this build is to bring a healer to the group that does its job, and it does it really well. Now there's a lot of flexibility in the build. You can come up with your own combination of skills if you want. You can come up with your own combination of gear if you want. But if you want to get this precise build, you do have to kind of go with the setup I'm running. Otherwise it won't work as well. So getting into the attributes, as you can see, I have a 32,000, magicka. I have a 17k max health, 10k stamina, 19 weapon or spell damage, 41% spell critical. I have a 21k spell resistance with a 16k physical resistance. Now that's on my staff bar. Now when I switch to my other bar, you're going to see some changes to my build, and that's for the survivability. It's only when I'm on my sword and board that I'm using it for greater survivability. So when I switch to sword and board, you're going to see my health goes up. You're going to see my magic recovery goes up, and you're going to see my spell damage stays the same, spell critical stays the same. But my resistances change, but my health went up. I did it to compensate for the loss of the extra resistances. So that's why I run that. I am running max health, max magicka food, and then of course I have the Apprentice Mundus Stone to increase my spell damage. A lot of people ask me, why do I go for the higher spell damage on my healers and the higher critical on my healers? And the main reason why is because the higher the spell damage, the higher the critical, the more effective your heals are. You don't need a massive critical unless you're going with a really low healing effectiveness. This way I have a good balance, and my character can get a lot of really good heals off more consistently. So getting into the gear, the gear can go one of two ways. You can use a lot of different sets when it comes to gear, but I would suggest using this monster set for the build. Especially if no matter what class you're playing, this monster set is going to be really good. And you can go with a different setup than what I have. Actually, I want to change my monster set to being a light reinforced helm with a light reinforced shoulders, because I want to have mostly reinforced gear to increase my resistances as high as possible, so that way my character's survivability is really good, and I'm not dying a lot in a dungeon or a trial setting, because if your healer dies, it can hurt your group really badly. So that's why I try to make more tankier heal, or this one more of a tankier healer than my Nightblade, is for that greater survivability. Now on the next sets, it's really dependent on the player how they want to run it, but I would suggest a few things. Always run a 5-piece seducers with this build, because that reduced cost in magicka really does help you as a player keep your magicka costs really low. And being a healer, you go through a lot of magicka anyways, and it gives you a good way to keep your resource management together with that lower magicka cost. Now what I would suggest is going with 4 pieces up here of the seducers and 1 weapon thing like a shield or a staff, and then it's really up to you from here on out what you want to do with the next set. Now I'm running a 5-piece set, a 2-piece set, and a 3-piece set, along with another partial set. The partial set is there to increase my spell damage, and that is Thorax Pack, to give me that increased healing effectiveness. Now as you can see, I'm wearing a sturdy shoes and a reinforced pants, and that's to give me just that extra reinforcement, like I said, because my shoulder's medium and my helm is light. I really would like to get a light shoulders with a medium leggings, because the medium legs are going to give me more resistances. I do run a 3-piece Grace of the Ancient set, and it's just to boost my magicka just a little bit more, because if you take the combination of one of my skills and this together, I get 9% max magicka, and it really helps me as a Khajiit because I don't have any way of boosting my max magicka, because Khajiits don't have any racial benefits that boost any of their attributes. So this is a way to do that and to give them just that extra magicka so they have it. Next up, I am running a sword and board. Like I said, on my sword I have a hardening enchantment, and that's just for that extra damage shield from it. Does help when it does trigger, and it triggers quite a bit, especially when you drop a lot of AoE heals that do, or AoEs that do damage. It'll proc quite a bit, and it'll every time it procs, it gives you that damage shield for 5 seconds. Really beneficial. Now this is a powered weapon, and that's it to go in combination with the 2-piece monster set to give me that 5% healing done. And then I run a resto staff down here to give me the the extra healing effectiveness from the staff, so I don't need that extra 3% to make this 5%. The resto staff gives me that, and that's the reason why I said that. And I would go with, like I said, more of a 5-piece seducer, so it's more consistent. The 8% reduced magicka cost. I'm going to be changing my gear set around here soon to give me the full benefit. Now you can change the Torag's Pact and this Grace of the Ancients for any of the normal healing sets, Worm Cult, Sanctuary, Combat Physician, or even, somebody was telling me the other day the third set, and I can't even remember what it is now. But you can change it out for any of the normal meta healer sets if you want to. It'll just just make sure that you get the one sword in that, or the one you're gonna have it running 4-piece or 5-piece on it only when you're on sword and board, because you want to still get that reduced cost of magicka more often. Now we're going to get into skills, and skills are kind of a funny place because a lot of people like using different kinds of skills, and this is really the area that you can decide what you want to run. Now I'm going to tell you guys something. I do use Reverberating Bash to apply Major Defile, and I'll explain why I unlocked it and why I'm telling you this. Is mainly because there's a lot of situational use in this game. A lot of skills that are very situational, and there's a lot of times that your tank, your healer, your tank, your DPS, and different things like that might not have certain abilities. So it's good to be prepared for any situation. So that's the main reason why I have Reverberating Bash unlocked. But let's go ahead and go through the skills that I do have on my bar right now. I just recently unlocked Necrotic Orb, so I'm leveling it up. It's a really good ability to give magicka back to your group and to do some magicka damage when you synergize it. Now, I really wouldn't suggest using this one right away. Like once you unlock it, build it up and use it, but only use it in dungeons. Outside of dungeons, it's really not that useful, because when you're outside of a dungeon, you're soloing most of the time. So when I solo play, I actually run Reflective Light. The other reason why I run Reflective Light is because of the benefit down here, Illuminate. Whenever I cast a Dawn's Wraith ability, I increase my group's spell damage by 5%, and that's the main reason why I would suggest using it. And also for Prison, which is a good way of getting ultimate generation. For a healer, it's good to get that ultimate generation for your ultimate abilities. You want to get those ultimates off, and this is a good way to build ultimate. Now, you will be focusing a lot on your resto staff more than you are sword and board. The sword and board's there mainly for you to have a way of doing a little bit greater damage with some survivability, and that's the main reason why I run it that way, is for that purpose. I also should just get right to the skills. So Necrotic Orb is my first bar. Next one up is Blazing Spear. I run this for an AoE, and it has a nice synergy on it for stamina-based players. Next up, I run Ritual Retribution. Really good heal, like area of effect heal that the Templar has. It also does damage over time, and then on top of that, it has a really good synergy that removes any harmful effects on the player and gives them health back. So it's a really good one to have. Next up, I run Structured Entropy. I run this for the fact, not just for the increased spell damage, but also that extra max health for when I'm on my sword and board to compensate, like I said, for the lack of the resistances. Next up, I have Inner Light to give me max magicka and also give me a little bit of spell critical. Like I said, it's all about trying to maximize my character's potential at healing. Remembrance is one I do run. Eventually, I want to swap it out for Warhorn, but I need to go unlock it, and that's going to take a while. On my back bar, I have Combat Prayer. One of the more well-used spells from the Resto staff is Combat Prayer, and that's because it does increase your group's damage by 8% regardless. And it is nice to have that, because you pop this before a fight, and so as soon as you pop it, you want to hit your whole group with it right away to give them that 8 seconds of extra damage. And it also gives them a little boost to their resistances, and try to keep it in a decent rotation, so that way you're firing it off quite often. You don't have to like not rotation of your abilities, just situational, like, you know, fire it off and try to keep it up as much as possible for that 8%. Next up, Rapid Regeneration, really good heal. I do switch this out for Healing Springs when I'm running with a lot of Magicka-based people. That way they get the extra Magicka return from it, and it's one that's nice to have. So, next up, Ward Ally. Another really good ability to have is a damage shield as a healer, a group damage shield. And Ward Ally is the only one I can get for a Templar. Next up, I do run Channeled Focus for the extra spell and physical resistance, but also the Magicka recover that it gives. It gives you 120 Magicka, or every 5.5 seconds, for the duration of the ability. So for 18 seconds, you're constantly getting 120 Magicka, actually 240 Magicka every second. So it's a really good ability to have for your resource management. Next up, Inner Light, again for the max Magicka and spell critical, especially on your healing bar. You really want to have a high critical and stuff. Solar Prison, this is a really good group thing. Not only does it do damage, but it also does a thing where it reduces the damage of the enemy by 30%. And anyone who activates the synergy does a gravity crash, which deals 12,820 magic damage to all enemies in the area and stunning them for 5 seconds. So you can drop this, get that 30% magic reduction or damage reduced for that period of time, and as soon as it gets close to the duration ending, you can have somebody synergize it, do the gravity crush with that magic damage, and stunning all the enemies. So it's a really good way to clear trash, or even put it on a boss with a lot of adds. Now, I told you guys I was going to tell you how you can swap this out with other classes. It's really easy to do. Anything on your class that gives you the extra physical and spell resist, you can swap it out for. So if you're playing a DK, you're going to use your Dragon Spikes. If you're using a Sork, you're going to use their lightning form. And if you're playing a Nightblade, you don't get that ability unless you're wearing heavy armor, where you get a better benefit of it. So I would suggest using a movable. It's a really good one to use, and it makes you immunity to knockback and disabling effects also for 5 seconds. A really, really good ability for a healer to have. And that's one that you can use. It is a stamina-based skill, so you do need to have a decent amount of stamina to keep it up. So I would suggest then using Tri-Stat Food. That's if you're playing a Nightblade. Now, for the rest of these abilities here, you can pretty much stick to the same things, but I would suggest switching this to Healing Springs if you're a Sork, a DK, or a Nightblade, because they don't have a lot of Magicka like return abilities. So that's a really good one to have on your bar, is to have Healing Springs, to give not only your group but yourself a way of getting Magicka back. Now, the nice thing about Resto Staff is it does have that... Oops, I didn't even put my point in here. It does have the Circle of Life, which restores an additional 30% Magicka when you complete a heavy attack. So this is a really nice one to have on your bar, or to have... Why you want to have a Resto Staff is to give you that Magicka return whenever you complete a heavy attack. Always focused on heavy attacks most of the time with your Resto Staff, not just for the purpose of damage, but for the purpose of that Magicka return. It's a good way to keep your resources coming in. Now, when it comes to the other abilities on this bar, it's really kind of easy to swap it out. The Playing a Nightblade, you won't need these two abilities because you already have a way of getting major sorcery, but you also have a way of increasing your max health through slotting certain abilities. And on this bar, I would suggest swapping this out for your refreshing path, and this out for your agony ability from the siphon tree. Now, as a DK, I would swap this out for I forget what it's called, but it's like Scorching or Inferno thing. It's like an Ardent Flame last ability. It's a fireball that circles around you, but there's a morph for it that'll heal your allies. Really good ability to have and replace with this. And then Fire Breath with this. And then, of course, your Necrotic Orb. These two abilities on the DK or on the Nightblade you don't need, or on the Sork. Because with the Sork, you can go with Bound Aegis on this for Inner Light, and then here you can go for your own class's buff that increases their spell damage. And then the same thing goes with, it'll also increase your spell damage and weapon damage. For the DK, you can go with their version, which will Igneous Weapon, I think it's Igneous Weapon, but it's a buff that increases their spell damage. And then the morph for it will give you increased damage to your light and heavy attacks, or to your heavy attacks by 11%. So it's a really nice one to have on the DK, that one. When you're playing a Nightblade, you're going to use their Siphon. They have a Siphon thing that grants you max sorcery, or I think it's weapon damage as well. You can go with either morph on that one, but I'd really say it's up to you. But no matter what, always go with an AoE heal kind of thing if you can, and then dot damage on these two bars, and it wouldn't really matter that way. I would go with liquid lightning, or the lightning storm thing for either, like for the blazing spear thing, and then this one always go for like a group heal type thing if you can have it for your class. The Sork does not have it, so what I would suggest putting here, I know it's going to sound weird, but I would suggest actually switching this to Energy Orb, so you get the healing orbs with the Sork. And then on your guild abilities, I would go with the Mage's Fire Rune. So really good AoE damage thing, and it does a lot of damage in the end. Or you could go with the Undaunted ability, Blood Altar, for a Sork. It's up to you, but it's a nice way that you can help your group out. If you can't do either one of those, what I would suggest doing then for a Sork is put down some other abilities back here to give you the extra benefits of ways of applying damage, and really just kind of tinker with it and find some good combinations of abilities. Sorks are really hard to play with in the healer field because if you're not running a Resto Staff on both bars, it can be kind of wonky. But this way you could do that. And the other thing you can do is swap out the shield for 2 swords on a Sork to increase your spell damage and stuff. You can also do that on the DK, the Nightblade, or the Templar. Runs dual wield and staff, so you get that increased magic damage. That's another thing that you can do. Other than that, I mean, the only thing we really have to go through is the champion points. So, but for playing the different classes, that's the way you can do it with the same gear setup. So going into here, I have 27 in Spell Shield, I have 27 Light Armor, 27 in Hardy and Elemental Defender, and this is the reason I have 27 here is because I don't really need much more than that on a healer. I have 16 in here, and eventually it's going to go to 27. I'm just going to go ahead and dump these 2 points I have into it. Over here I have 27 into Bastion, increasing the effectiveness of my damage shields, along with Quick Recovery, increasing the effectiveness of my healing received for myself. It's always good to give yourself a little bit of a benefit to make your stuff better. I have 17 in Warlord. I really don't need that much. You only need about 15 in here to reduce the cost of stamina abilities, because you do use some stamina abilities if you are playing a healer. You know, I do swap out a lot of my abilities for some stamina abilities, like the Sword and Boards, Reverberating Bash, the Fighters Guilds, Circle of Protection, those kind of things. Magician, I have 46 in here, reducing the cost of my magic abilities by 10%. Next up, I have 27 into Arcanist, increasing my magic recovery by 22%. I have 22 into Tenacity. I'm just going to dump the 2 points I have into here. 24 points now. Increasing the amount of magic and stamina I get back from my heavy attacks by 6.8%. I get 30% back normally with my heavy attacks with the resto staff. This increases it by another 6.8%. I want to try and get it up to 10%, so it's going to take 46 points to do that. That way I get 40% back whenever I do a heavy attack. It really helps, trust me, on keeping your resources in a constant flow. I have 27 to befoul to increase the effectiveness of healing reduction abilities like the reverberating bash. That will now be affected from 34% to by another 12%, making it 46%. It makes that reduced healing really effective on certain boss encounters in the game, and it's very situational, so it's a good thing to have it that available for your group, so you can run and hit the enemy with reverberating bash back up, like if you're fighting the boss in Dire Frost Keep, and certain other areas of the game. Shadow Ward to reduce my block costs. Using sword and board, having that greater reduced cost on block is really good. Now, if I wasn't going to use this, if I wasn't blocking a lot, I'd put it into here to reduce my break free cost and my dodge and rolling by 10%. Over here, I have 27 into blessed, increasing my healing effectiveness by 10%. Being a Templar, I don't need a lot more. Now, if I wasn't a Templar, I would suggest putting 75 points into here. That's to increase it by 20%. I wouldn't go any higher than that because really you don't need any higher than 25% all the time. And being a Templar, like I said, it's really easy for me to get that 25% all the time because I'm the only class who can really get it 25% all the time, healing effectiveness. So this gives me 35% when I use that buffs, along with some other beneficial things. Elfborn, increased critical healing. I have 75 into here to increase my magic damage because I do want to help out my group. I don't want to be just the healer who stands there and heals. I want to be one that can also apply damage. So this is a way to do that. I have 27 of spell erosion, increasing my spell penetration by 1600. With wearing 4 pieces or 5 pieces of light armor, I get 4,000 something or 3,000 something. I don't know, but so much spell penetration. This increases it to get me around 5,000 spell penetration all the time. I do use a defending staff, and I use a reinforced shield with a powered sword. So it's all about the heals on my character. Next, I have 10 into Thaumaturgy. I am going to take this up. I'm just going to go ahead and dump these 2 points in here. But I do want to take this up to 27 to increase my damage over time by another, 10% in total. Because it does help out in the end when you think about it. The more damage that you can do as any class or any role, the more effective you are for your group, because that means more damage is being done to the enemies. So that means they're not going to last as long. And this is what I try to do even with my tanks and my healers, my DPS, doesn't matter. I maximize everything I can about them, regardless of what their role is. So even if I'm playing a tank, I try to maximize their damage potential along with their tankiness. Being a healer, I maximize their healing potential along with their damage. When I'm playing DPS, I maximize their damage, and then the secondary thing I maximize is their survivability. It just helps me play the game a little bit better. And I do use, like I said, 2032 on almost all my builds. My food is worn off, so of course my stuff drops. But that's pretty much it. I mean, for the build, guys, you can do what you want with your champion points. It's up to you. You can do the same thing with your gear, and you can do the same thing with your skills. It's up to you. But playing a Khajiit healer is, like I said, it's just really hard to get the stats up there that you need for playing a Magicka-based class or even a Stamina-based class. So this is a way that you can benefit yourself by giving you those little bonuses to get you just enough to get you there. So that's all I wanted to show you for that. And yeah, that's it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you want to see more videos by me, you can hit the subscribe button. I try to post videos on a daily basis, but here recently I've been a little sick and under the weather with a head cold and my allergies kicking in at the same time, so it's been really hard on me. I'm trying not to cough too throughout this whole video, which was not easy to do. But yeah, that's it for now. Until next time, I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.